So the next thing we've got is a little bit on Sylvanas from Steve Danuser, which I just saw this flyby on Twitter, and people certainly had strong responses.
They very much did.
To it. So yes, buckle up for more Sylvanas. Following Blizzard's controversial narrative surrounding World of Warcraft's timeless villainess, I've already stumbled. Great. Sylvanas Windrunner, the devs have assured fans that 9.2 won't be the end of the Banshee Queen.
Which is, I'm going to just preface this because this is Dick Serto, who don't have a huge amount of contextual understanding of World of Warcraft, I think.
Yes.
Not maybe it's implied or maybe it's something that they didn't decide to put through in the interview, but nothing following that statement implies that or confirms it. There is, based on what's said in this interview, she could still pop her clogs at the 9.2 or 9.2.5. But anyway, it was just a weird logical thing I thought reading this, but yeah.
So what did Danuser say? Throughout Eternity's End, we will see much more of that Shattered Legacy story, and we will work towards a resolution of the Sylvanas arc. That's been something we've been building for a very long time.
Since 2001, I believe.
That's it. The Chuckler and the sigils and all of this since 2001.
20 years of Sylvanas.
Sylvanas is obviously pivotal in the events that lead us to the Shadowlands, so now that the two pieces of her soul are back together, it doesn't mean that one of them is gone. The Banshee Queen is not gone, the Ranger General hasn't taken over. It's that these two pieces are having to find a path forward, and they have to become one entity and one soul, not this fractured thing. Now, I do think that people are being super unfair to Steve.
Yeah,
There's loads of people saying that, he is referring to Sylvanas as a thing, and there are potential sexual,
not even just that. Just
so some people ever bring up the sexual assault angle,
and
things like that for Sylvanas. Not that's happened to Sylvanas, but
the implication
subtext.
of how, the implication of how Christy Golden describes how she feels becoming the Banshee Queen.
Yeah. When he says fractured thing, I think he's just talking about the situation. This crazy thing with the two souls. I don't think he's meaning that as a, I don't think he's meaning that as, this is no longer a person, this is a thing. I think that's a pointlessly uncharitable way to take it.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a guy doing an interview in spoken word. These are going to be, maybe... there will be some rehearsing of, okay, here are the talking points I want to hit. Here are the few breadcrumbs I'm willing to give out. There'll be some planning involved. Yeah. But ultimately, are we really going to start completely ragging a guy for just how a word came out as a response to a question?
Yeah, and even then, I think this may be reaching a little bit, but I think if he's going to be inside the character's head an awful lot, you could argue that perhaps that's not him describing her, but perhaps that's an indicator of how she felt. Not whole, not a whole person, not a whole thing, or not a whole person or whole being, but a sort of fractured thing. Maybe that's how she felt, but wasn't entirely sure of it. And maybe that's what drove her to be a little bit unreasonable at times, or to kind of, it's the kind of thing where if anyone doesn't really feel whole, you could describe yourself as like a fractured or a thing and kind of ultimately dehumanize yourself because that's how you feel. I think that's, a completely arguable way to also read it. Yeah. Not just that it was a mistake or that it's malicious, but that maybe that's how she feels, and he'll know that.
True. I honestly just think he's just trying to say, they're trying to find a path forward, become one entity, one soul, not this crazy fractured thing. Yeah. It's like if somebody was to say it like that, are you really going to... So I don't know. I honestly think that... yes, a lot of people are taking issue with that. I think that there's an appropriate level of suspicion based on how well the character has been treated. And I definitely feel I have that level of suspicion towards really most of what they say from a narrative perspective these days. And especially, honestly, I feel a bit betrayed over in Erzul.
Yeah.
And how they have handled so many aspects of the lore that I cared about. Yeah. But if we're going to be unproductively uncharitable, then I don't know what's the point. But to continue on then, but that's not an easy road to walk. And whether if he really meant thing, he would have said it here.
Yeah.
So, and whether she can do that and what form it takes is what you'll see play as you play through the new content. We're very excited about how the story culminates. They said that about N'Zoth.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is where I'm going to be, I think, charitably suspicious. Not unreasonable to be suspicious given the handling of the lore thus far, and especially the ending of BFA. It will play out in a chapter of the Covenant campaign that we didn't put on the test realm for a specific reason, because we wanted to hold back that final piece of the story for players to discover as they play through the content.
Do that for the whole game.
Yes. Take that idea, extend that idea.
Do it for all of the content in the PTR. Get your raid testing to be private and NDA'd, or do it entirely in house. Thank you.
Yeah. FF14 can do it, why can't you? And if it's because our game is too complex, that's your problem. Make the game less complex.
Uncomplex it.
Make the game that you can comfortably ship with your own internal QA resources. It's enough for most other devs.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not that, and also it just makes the game better.
Yeah.
When the story comes out properly.
Hey, everyone can experience it and feel it.
Yeah.
Instead of nitpick it.
It's not that one of those personalities is gone. If you watch the subtle things as you play through the quest line or see what she says and does, you'll see that she still has the quick wit and the snark. That's not disappeared. She still got that attitude. So yeah, it is the reconstitution of the whole Sylvanas after the fracturing happened. How are people taking it? Well, just some... not always fantastic, let's just say.
Yeah.
My main issue is feels entirely motivated by placating to entirely different types of fans that have a very surface level appreciation of the character. Just kind of wanting the cardboard cutout or first impression of, ooh, edgy Ranger, or sorry, good Ranger General, edgy Banshee Queen, the things like that. I just think that there is so much suspicion. So much suspicion. You can just see, handling of the character is gross. And I think that's something you'll generally see. Is anyone really happy with Sylvanas? No. That said, there's all the Afrosabi stuff. And it's funny because there's a few other things I've had leaked to me. I don't really know if... I probably can say them, to be honest, but just... suffice to say, Shadowlands was initially a wee bit different.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes.
But the next thing I could say,
yeah.
but I don't know if it would be too much.
I think it would be too much.
Yeah, you think it would be too much?
I don't think it's worth.
Okay, let's just say there's aspects that you would some things would make more sense if it was reasonable for me to say that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to throw sources under the bus that way. But
yeah, but some things would make sense.
Yep.
So yes. Anyway,
certainly a different lens through which to look at Shadowlands.
If you want to know if it was better or not, I would say
could have been.
Ultimately, it's the execution of the broad direction that needs to be done right. The way that they changed from what the way that it was, the way it had been changed is not bad because it was fundamentally bad, and I mean it certainly had fundamental weaknesses, but it could have been executed well.
Yeah. The takeaway I kind of have is more that if you're changing things, you're liable to not have a super solid idea of where you're going immediately, and then you're kind of going to have to rush a couple little things, or some things you planned may not make sense entirely, and it's just that kind of problem of probably worth trying to spend more time and effort really planning things out. Even though that
people come back to, how many... It's only a pretty small number of writers in FF14, and they plan in detail super far ahead.
Yeah,
their story, and Blizzard evidently don't.
Yeah, and one of the times that FF14 was at its weakest storytelling-wise is when they very specifically didn't plan that far ahead in detail. That was Stormblood. Stormblood, people generally consider it the weakest of the expansions in terms of overall plot and how it executed, and I would largely agree with that. I think I like the themes a lot, but generally speaking, it feels a bit weaker and like there's a couple of little problems, and that's specifically because they had a bunch of problems in development of Heavensward. Just a whole bunch of different things across it. It was the first time developing an expansion with nothing else, and they had the MSQ. Obviously, the Heavensward MSQ is fucking exceptional stories, but it ultimately resulted in some problems. So they tried to get more done in Stormblood before they set the detail of the MSQ in. They knew where they were going, but they didn't have all the details filled in.
Oh,
they did that.
Man, that makes so much sense.
They did that a lot later in development than they did with Heavensward, and a lot of people contribute that to what went wrong. And they seem to have shifted back to, no, we plan our details out very, very heavily, and then we work around that production wise.
Ultimately, I can tell you that what they have intended for Sylvanas, from my understanding, broad strokes, there are similarities for a long time.
Yeah.
But very key details and reads of particular situations and things like that, those have actually chopped and changed quite a lot. Yeah. If you look at the start of Legion, so I suppose it's almost like a media literacy thing. And I mean, I'd say overall we're a pretty media literate bunch. Because I mean, we all watch TV and movies, and then we read books and we do all of these things. So we're kind of at the stage where we're used to how the language of cinema is used, right? Like the way the camera moves and all of that. We're kind of used to reading it. And if you look at a whole bunch of how Sylvanas was betrayed in at the start of Legion, she was not portrayed in line with what you would think some of her internal monologue, or she just doesn't feel like she was always portrayed in line with what is now the most canon of her. It's like broad strokes, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of things being carried forward, but a lot of important motivational details have been iffy. And I mean, that's why they have to have a book called World of Warcraft Sylvanas to actually...
the 29th of March.
29th of March, to actually solidify what her character is and tell us, what was she thinking when the Broken Shore happened? What was she thinking when she took the throne? What was she thinking when, she had the lamp destroyed by Gen? Because it's been a struggle to parse all of these details.
Yeah, why do we not know that?
Exactly, yeah. So I think, look, just the fact that they basically they basically have a book that is a repair job for a character's motivation, that should tell you most of what you need to know about how the lore in this game has been handled over the last few years.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's fine whenever you're writing a chronicle to get your lore in order, but when you're writing a character-specific chronicle to get your character in order over the past couple of years, because I would understand it if it's like, well, we didn't really know what the hell we're doing with Sylvanas back in, the first couple expansions with, everything that was going on in the Undercity, and we sort of made shit up for that song she sings. So we'll do a light touch on that. But they were like, well, we've scuffed the last 4 or 5 years. We're going to have to fix it. It just seems a little bit... No, I won't say embarrassing. I'll say unfortunate.
Yes.
Even though I still said it. But yeah.